Anderson Lee Aldrich committed mass murder because you complained about the sexualizing of children, sexually mutilating kids, sexually mutilating children, the sexual mutilation of children, the sexuality of children. People mutilating the genitals of children, running ads on Instagram promoting kiddie porn, kiddie porn, kiddie porn, kiddie porn. It's an endorsement of kiddie porn. They are not doing it for a scientifically defensible reason. They're doing it because they believe in a very specific religious ideology. That's true. It's happening. It's absolutely real. You're not imagining that. The evidence is everywhere and it comes to light on the internet. It is happening. You can't just make up a story because it suits your pre-existing beliefs. Are we jumping to conclusions? Don't think so.
This weekend, a person went into an LGBTQ bar and murdered 5 people, shot dozens others. And while there's still a lot that we're gonna learn about this person and their views and why we did this, we know that this is just the latest in a long string of acts of harassment and intimidation and violence and murder against members of this community. And in the wake of this horrific attack, Tucker Carlson, who has one of the largest audiences in cable news, decided to not only reassure his audience that he is going to continue to vilify this community in the wake of this violence, but also to reassure them that they should be an active participant in that they should still be fired up to attack and marginalize and drive into the shadows and potentially kill members of this community. And as weird as that video was, and massive credit to Kat Abu of Media Matters for putting that together. We've been featuring a lot of her work recently. I thought, well, okay, that's a lot of weird stuff that he had to say. But what, like over the last month, over the last 6 months, like I know that Media Matters does a lot of compilations of stuff. So I asked her, what was the time period for the clips that she put together into that? And she told me, to be clear, every one of these clips came from the first 20 minutes of Carlson's show tonight. What you just saw, constant references to sexualization, like kiddie porn being said 3 to 5 times, all of that came in just his leadoff monologue. He hit the ground running, talking about castration and sexualization and kiddie porn and all of that. And I just wanted to give you just a little bit of her opining because she has to watch a lot of this. She tweeted, "It's so effing weird how often the most watched cable news host in the country talks about children's genitals." And I think that everything gets so normalized. Let's not let this get normalized. It is very weird that people like Tucker Carlson and others, Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and all of them, are so constantly talking about and even more constantly thinking about the current state of kids' genitals. That is really, really weird. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, it's bizarre, and you see this throughout staff at the Daily Wire as well. They obsess over these types of things, and they obsess over things like Disney movies. It's like, look, man, if you don't like a kids movie, just don't watch it. Making your career as a 40 or 50-year-old guy to obsess over these things is probably the most alarming thing of all. And what they're doing, and you saw throughout the right wing, the response to this tragedy was to further demonize this community at large and conflate things that everyone agrees are heinous with a community that is just simply marginalized. But that is, they want more outcomes like we saw in Colorado, just like they want more outcomes like they saw at the Pulse nightclub shooting. This is the result that we've been warning about for years now. When you continue to fuel these bigoted attacks through your rhetoric, you're only going to see more of them. So it has nothing to do with, again, things that we all agree are heinous, and everything to do with an animus toward the LGBTQIA+ community and what they see as a electoral strategy, which is demonizing and punishing the other. They just tried this in the last election and they failed, but they're still going to try because I think it ultimately feels good for them, makes themselves feel better about themselves, but it isn't a viable electoral strategy. But the Republican Party has largely embraced a politics of hate and running on platforms that just punish marginalized communities for sport.
Yeah, and look, I guess it would be worse if their obvious political strategy worked politically. That would be worse, but I agree, it doesn't appear that it is actually working. But let's bear in mind, that doesn't mean that they're gonna have any incentive to stop, because the thing that fails to achieve their supposed political goals might still benefit them personally and in terms of their careers. And I mean, you could come up with another version of this. Like imagine, this is total hypothetical. Imagine if you had like a show or a network of shows or whatever that claimed to be leftist, but pursued narratives and political strategies that would literally never benefit the left in any way, demonstrably so, but it benefited them in terms of their audience and their money. Well, that would be a similar sort of thing, purely hypothetical, of course. And so to be clear, they all, like, we're not showing this Tucker thing because he is individually the most important person or whatever. It's a demonstration of they're all doubling down. Again, exactly the same as they did following the attack on Paul Pelosi. There's like an hour where everyone's like, is this gonna break through? Is this gonna change things? And no, 3 or 4 hours later, Don Jr. is posting Halloween costumes of the attempted assassin of Nancy Pelosi, and they just roll on. They're not gonna allow any of this to stop them. They're not gonna allow the facts to stop them. We were just covering what, like 2 weeks ago, Matt Walsh on Joe Rogan's show, and he was talking about some gender affirming care that he said numbers in the millions of cases per year. It was a few thousand. They fact checked. Joe Rogan fact checked him. Did the fact that he, in his mind, was magnifying this thing hundreds or thousands of times over change his focus on it on a daily basis? No. This guy who has an audience has continued to make the core of his show, which ostensibly comments on the entirety of politics in America, around the world. They've decided to make it exclusively about their misunderstanding around medical procedures that affect a couple of thousand people in a country of over 300 million individuals. That is a lot of things. It's scary and it's concerning and it's dangerous, but it's also highly, highly weird. Except that it clearly does benefit them. They are generating an audience, they are making money. It might not achieve any of their other political goals, but their personal goals of influence and having a nice house or whatever, it clearly works for that. And if one of the costs of that is that occasionally a bar gets shot up, people get murdered, they are perfectly fine with that. And I'm not hypothesizing, they're demonstrating right now how perfectly fine they are with that trade-off. By the way, on the how weird it is, as part of his monologue, one of the things Tucker Carlson said was, the truth is that some adults in this country, apparently a growing number, have a deeply unhealthy fixation on the sexuality of children. And he thinks he's talking about us.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.